My name is Evan Coleman. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at the Maine Academy of Natural Sciences. And my role has been, I was the administrator on our team of 3. We actually ended up having Jeff and Rand, or 2 of our science teachers, join. So I was the administrator of the 3 of us. I think for me, it really succinctly, it has enabled us to live out our mission as a school. I think when COVID hit, I arrived right after sort of COVID had just finished, the first year of COVID had just wrapped up. And as a school that talks a lot about, outdoor, project-based, hands-on learning, a lot of the projects that we just witnessed today and, we had a chance to see on the ground had either died or were sort of dwindling and hadn't had as much energy and life put into them because of a lack of funding capacity. And so I think, overall, just sort of a broad statement, the RREV grant not only allowed us to revitalize a lot of those efforts, but see how our mission could have us become a different school. I do think there's a lot of pieces around that. My role is generally around the academic program, and so what are we offering students academically? And to be a project-based learning school, you need to be able to live that out in these outdoor spaces, utilize the incredible resources we already have, but a lot of it is about capacity, infrastructure, having teachers who are trained and know how to do these things, hiring Phyllis, our ag assistant, to be able to lead a more robust greenhouse program in agriculture class. So when we think about where does the RREV show up, it's sort of all across campus and all across our teachers too. I think it's really helped shape we are doing what we say we're doing as a school. We can be transparent about we are actually living out our mission. And when we say we are leaders in outdoor learning, we are doing that. And that's been in large part having the Makerspace barn and a lot of resources around our intensives. It's helped us reimagine what that can look like on campus. I kind of have the luxury, because we are such a small school, to be able to be on the ground and working with teachers and collaborating with our intensive projects and getting out into the field. But I think being able to do this with Jeff and Rand has really helped me realize the importance of some of these things that can feel on paper or data points less significant, and then to have some of the relationships with students, or just a few of the kids I was already talking to you about, Nigel with the woodshop signs or Alex with the raised bed. There's these little things that are huge moments for that student and their trajectory at our school. And I know for me, the difference between reading about or looking at our test scores or whatever those might be, as opposed to getting out in the field with a teacher in a class or putting on that bee suit and going out to the apiary, taking the time to do that, I guess, would be my recommendation for administrators. It's hard. My job is sort of this intermediary between the admin team and the teachers, where I'm working with teachers on projects and curriculum. But even for Matt and Pat, it's to have them be able to take the 15 minutes out of their day to just push into a classroom, or to pop out to the 1-acre farm, or to hop into the greenhouse and see what's going on the ground, because I think you can lose sight of that. A lot of that is the faculty culture, honestly. I mean, that was one of the biggest challenges when I started was, if folks are used to doing things a certain way and feel comfortable encouraging people to step outside of their comfort zone, and I think we do that a lot as a school. But when you're able to support teachers and sort of lead by example, or we're all going to get on board with this, or we're not going to do it, and let them know that we're not just sort of doing a flashy initiative, but this is the vision for the next 3 to 5 years of our school. And so we're going to invest in you, we're going to get you this training, we're going to get you these resources, we're going to have you, but you need to hold up your end of the bargain as a teacher and make sure students are having the opportunities that we talk about them having. So yeah, I mean, I think the biggest part was sort of the cultural change, and I think for us it's also this, if we can model it as a faculty and an admin team, how does that impact the student culture? And already I would say, this is my 3rd year here, but over every year we have more and more students that are coming to us for these types of experiences of getting out, getting their hands dirty, trying things out that they wouldn't be able to do at a different school. And that shifts the culture of, it's not, I'm looking for a different, in the charter world, it can be, I'm looking for a different school because I hate my sending district. And I think we're getting more that are driven by the mission or thinking about, wow, if you get a tour of campus, like when I first toured as someone looking at a job here, it was like just floored by what is out there. And so to have them reimagine kind of what, as a student, they might think is important or a different way of learning. So yeah, I think that the change part is ongoing. I don't think it ends now. And the hard part is sort of continuing to push on these things and making sure everyone's on board. And I think we do a lot of this year has been the culture building with our faculty, which I think has been really strong to make sure it's not a mandate top down. It is like, are we all on board with this? What are the things that are going to get in the way? How do we pivot? How do we adjust? And and with the REV, we've had to communicate about something shifted. Oh, this role's going to change. We need this, and because we're so small and we have a lot of teachers that are really invested in what our school's doing, I think it helps. Mm-hmm. But I think that cultural shift, the REV has really permitted us to step back and re-envision as a collective whole. We've done a lot with sort of our strategic planning for the next 3 to 5 years and being able to use REV as a resource to be a part of that. How can we set things up for the next 3 to 5 years as opposed to just for this year? So I would say that's been a big part of how we talk about our school and how we see ourselves now, is that we're able to do these types of experiences and the type of experiential learning that is not available to other schools. I went to a Waldorf school, actually. I was K through 8. I went to a Waldorf school, and I keep in touch with my teacher who, they stay with you all 8 years. And she last week actually just reached out to ask if I would help lead their 8th grade culminating trip, which is a schooner trip on the Merry Day in Camden Rockport. Overnight, this was like our big 8th grade celebratory thing. So I went through 8 years of very hands-on, experiential, outdoor, a Waldorf model, and then went to a big public high school where there was none of that. And so that 9th grade year for me was this sort of, I think there was 1,600 kids in my school, small fish in a huge pond all of a sudden, feeling very, very different. And at times really like out of touch with what was the importance of being there. Like if I'm just getting tested and trying to get the best grades for college, is that sort of the only goal of this high school? And so most of my outdoor experiences were sports and or doing, clubs or being able to do things in the summer. And it wasn't until I graduated high school that I really had a chance to revitalize that as in college and looking at alternative education as sort of my interest. So I grew up next to the woods, and my family spent a lot of time outdoors. We were, did a lot of things outside, but the schooling part was definitely not a part of that at all. And I think a lot of our students have had a similar experience, right, where they have gone to a big public school where they feel like a number, a data point, and are looking for something else. A lot of times the hardest part is convincing them to just let go of a few things that they've built up to step outside their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so when you have, students who have gone through maybe K through 8 in a public school where they don't feel like their experience matters or their style of learning is that important, and you have to 9th grade, you're like, no, we're going to give you the reins to kind of figure this out. There's a learning curve for a lot of them. And when we've been working with a couple other groups around the other public high schools that have been doing outdoor learning at school, that it's gaining momentum because my generation did not have that at school at all. Really a really important part of our school is this sort of heterogeneous model where we have all of our classes have an incredible spectrum of learning levels. It's really difficult for teachers, but we do have smaller class sizes, which is helpful. But a lot of these students who are just have told themselves, I hate math, and then they're going to go plant potatoes out in the 1 acre farm in their math class, and they're like, what is this? Is this a math course? So breaking that there is not this binary of either I'm sitting in a desk getting tested or I'm doing something fun outdoors, but there's kind of this middle ground for students who haven't had that in the past. And I think the amount of little things, there's a few big things that the REV has provided us, and the amount of little things that, for me, these overnight trips have been really meaningful for this idea of, how do we convince students that these experiential opportunities for going up to Acadia and camping out and the inherent value of just doing that in and of itself. Not that we're going to tie it to a learning objective right away, behind the scenes maybe, but not up front. And so finding these times where the bonding, the building of the class culture, I think that's been a part that has been really beautiful to see. I think we do this survival intensive overnight. I think I sent you guys some of those photos of the building the fires on a frozen lake. They have to do a 3-mile hike in snowshoes, learn how to forage, they make their own food. So having experiences where they're just really thrown into it, and a lot of these students have never been camping or hiking or anything, where you see the kind of growth that happens even from, I remember the last year's 9th grade classes having a really rough fall. We went to the winter and I was really nervous about bringing them out into these sort of yurts and out to Eustis and at Lennox Lodge where we were, to be out on a frozen lake, to trust them to make it through this 3-mile hike and all this stuff. And some of the students who signed up, I was surprised because I didn't think they would join us. And then coming out of it, what it did for that class culture of that, how the spring looked as opposed to the fall was, a lot of them will say that experience was something that totally changed what I thought about my year. So I think there's a lot of those moments. And then, there's the Alex that hasn't found a route to success at his other schools and gets a chance to have a teacher that's like, hey, let's go work on that project in the wood shop today. Or Nigel, who, has, I think at previous schools has really hated his time there and then finds this wood shop blacksmithing opportunity, and that shifts what matters for him. I guess the last one I would say is, I think, I know very little about blacksmithing. That's where Jeff has been the lead in taking point on all of that. But seeing the legacy of sort of what Dick Tessier had left behind at our school, and that, Rose was one of the students who knew him before he passed. And the ceremony we had out there when all these alums came back, these teachers who used to work with him, community members, and that he was just this sort of selfless soul that really wanted students to have an opportunity to do this. And so hearing from those students who've been through it, and then getting them to see, we're offering blacksmithing to 35, 40 students this year alone, and that's going to be something that is, we just had that NPR thing, the only blacksmithing program in the state of Maine at a high school. It's like it's this thing that will forever be a part of our school culture. And students, I can't tell you how many have tried to sign up and want to do it. It's like, we're not getting everybody this year, but you have next year too. We'll get all the seniors, and then we'll work our way back. So seeing that as a new, that makerspace bar, and having the woodshop and blacksmithing programs be another part of that re-envisioning and how much that experience means to students. There's many examples of it, but overall that has been really powerful to hear them talk about it, and to get all these funky little projects that are floating around. And for me, the largest part is just having a school continuing to do what we say we do, and being known as a school that does that. Like I do think what's hard of where we are, and I make the commute every day up here, we're out in a pretty rural area where opportunities that we can provide on campus are not everywhere. It's hard to find some of the things that we offer, but whether it was sort of an adult blacksmithing course or being able to offer the sort of refurbished wood projects, what are the things that we could give out to the community and set up this sort of mutually beneficial space that families, students, community partners, the local public are seeing our school as a sort of communal resource. I think we as a school have thought a lot around, who are we? How do we market ourselves? What is this thing that is going to have people feel excited about coming here, and to just step back from that and to be able to know what we're doing is good inherently. I don't think sometimes it's always jumping through the hoops of how many students receive this score, or whatever those wickets are. To be able to step back from that and think about an alternative model of education that is working, and to hopefully be sort of pioneers in the state. I think that's where it's been so wonderful to be a part of these collaborative opportunities with other REV awardees and other schools that are doing variations of outdoor learning projects, where you see that there is a need for it and that it's recognized across the state. And so for me, I don't know, 5 years, I guess I would hope that these programs, we've expanded that barn and we have a commercial kitchen, and students are getting these sort of life skills along with their academic learning that's going to feel important and is going to matter for their futures. And I think look at a different model for public education. I mean, that's why I first came here. It's just how else could we envision something where the poorest county in the state of Maine, how can you see something else for some of the students who maybe haven't found the road to success in other schools. So I hope, for me, it's all about the sort of collaboration community model, but finding projects, opportunities, classes that are need-based, right? That we are meeting a need with what students are doing, both their needs and their community needs. We're having a food pantry that we can provide through our greenhouses where, chickens are gonna lay their eggs and we can give those out to families, but having other resources that make it feel like a cultural center, I guess, for the area we're in. I think that would be it, and that, hopefully all these things are still happening and we're all here doing what we like to do. I think, I really love working with the people I work with too. And that's a part to speak to sustainability. It's like getting people who know what they want to do, are excited about coming to work, are doing really beautiful things across the campus, and want to keep coming back. And I know with teacher shortage and all the challenges in public education, it's really hard to do that. But I do think we've cultivated a pretty powerful faculty culture where it is not a business relationship. It's really built a lot of things together. Hopefully the alums will be back. I want to see all these students that have now graduated that are coming back to visit and hang out. It's kind of hard to believe that this sort of chapter is coming to a close because so many of these things, as you just saw, like the wood shop wing is now up and running, and all these things that have been taken so long to get up and going because of how small we are as a school. Mm-hmm. But that it is, for me, it's this feeling of, all that extra symposium and all the pieces of how do we make this sustainable. And I think that's been the hardest piece, right? I'm sure a lot of RREV awardees have felt that. It's hard when you have a limited supply of funding for a limited amount of time. But I do really want to say just the support and being in a community of educators who are all doing these different things and finding times to meaningfully reconnect, like at the State House was super wonderful. They just have these natural, or today at the MIA conference, having these natural spaces where the same people are showing up and they're all coming back to the same questions and they're bringing solutions to the table. I don't think I recognized how much that would be a benefit to our school. There's the part of it where you can feel a little eye rolly of like, oh, I have to attend this another thing and I have to do, and then when you're actually in the room and you're with people and particularly hearing about how this looks at other campuses and seeing iterations of the same types of projects you're doing, that really helps, I guess, the self-belief part that like, yes, we can make this last. It's not just going to be this sort of one-off, look how cool this is, but that these are sustainable structures that are going to work for students and for faculty into the next 3 to 5 years. And I don't know, it's hard for me to imagine some of the pushes we've made without the RREV. I think I will be, and not to flatter you too much, but I do feel that way, like sincerely, that it's a lot of these little bits and just having the opportunity to tell teachers we're going to support this, we're going to go above and beyond to make sure this can happen, and that builds in the culture and makes people feel like this is a place that's going to do what they say they do. And the integrity part, I think, is really, when you're at other schools where the administration will say one thing and then the reality is very different. I think we've worked a lot to make sure those things sync and line up. So I don't know. I guess I'm hopeful we can keep finding those spaces, like for all the other awardees and people who are continuing this on and the MOLI and all this other stuff that's coming up. There's, I guess I just hope it continues on and we can find meaningful ways to host schools to come on and come check this out. And when we were starting this, I think again it's the sort of cultural piece that for us as a school around this alignment with our mission. I mean that part was helping us re-envision and revitalize what that mission was. There's been other initiatives we've taken on that are important and do a certain service-specific task, but often that task is in one particular arena or under one particular department or under a very small umbrella, and to have something that is so all-encompassing. I remember, I think it was at the symposium actually doing the sustainability symposium of the map of all the different ways in which we were going to use the RREV, and I still have a slide where I did all the visuals, and it was, 16 different aspects of our school that all are benefiting from these larger goals that we have and the larger, funding initiatives. So it really was an all-encompassing push that I think if we didn't have buy-in from faculty, it would have been really difficult. But because of what we were already doing, it aligned so directly with our value system as a school and what we're trying to do academically. So, I think that was just for us incredibly sort of fortunate, and also that it really did meet a very particular need for us at a very specific time in our school's development. And so being able to have those two things work together so harmoniously was kind of unimaginable initially. And so I guess that, I don't know if that answers the question fully, but I think it was really connecting our vision for the 3 to 5 year growth of our school and being able to use REV as a way of clarifying that vision, right? That there was this sort of overlap that felt so natural and that made a lot of these programs flourish as opposed to die off with COVID, right. All the things that could have happened.